Cease from the wise Greeks and Trojans, the great travels made by them. Hush the victories had by Alexander and Trajan, and their fame. I sing now the illustrious Lusitanian feat that Neptune and even Mars obeyed. Cease everything sung by the ancient muse, for now a higher value rises. Hello folks, it's me again, Amanda Enderman, your trusty tour guide in the wonders of the wonderful city, also known as Rio de Janeiro. How did you like my very epic introduction of this video? Did it give you a hint of what I'm going to talk about? Well, just in case it didn't, I'm gonna tell you anyway. On this video, I'm gonna be talking about some of the great explorers that made Brazil, and I should say the colonies in the Americas, but in this video I'll be focusing in Brazil, possible to begin with. But before I get right on to the theme of the video, I have to remind you that I'm currently offering walking tours through the city of Rio, and all of them are described on my website, which the link will be in the description box below, as well as in the first fixed comment. So all you have to do is click there, text me via WhatsApp, that's very important, make your reservations of course, and after that, let's get to know the city of Rio in person, folks! With me, Amanda Enderman, your trusty tour guide, of course. And now, without further ado, let's get right on to the theme of the video. I actually started talking about this theme, specifically about the real date of Brazil's discovery, in another video which I made, and I will leave the link in the cards above here. And I'm not gonna completely repeat myself of what I talked about in that video. So if you haven't seen that video yet, please do check it out so that you don't miss out bits of information. Going on with the video, our very first explorer, which we're gonna talk about today, is none other than Sancho Brandão, the actual discoverer of Brazil, already in 1342.
Wait a minute, Amanda. Wasn't it Pedro Álvares Cabral in 1500? A lot of Brazilians told me that, oh my goodness.
As I said in the video about the true date of Brazil's discovery, absolutely not. The date of April 21st, 1500 was completely fabricated. It was in fact the date in which Pedro Álvares Cabral came here, but Pedro Álvares Cabral was only here to further officialize the Portuguese possession of Brazil, which had already began in 1342. And it was all fabricated by the Institute of History and Geography. Go figure. Don't worry, I am gonna tell you the details on this very video. So I'm finally giving you, English speakers, details about it. Because I admit that in the video of the true date of the discovery of Brazil, I hadn't read the bombshell of a book which told me all of those things. But now I have read it, so I can finally tell you about it. I have made a video specifically about this book, but only in Portuguese, since, to my knowledge, the book has only been written in Portuguese, so there's no point in speaking about the book and reading parts of the book in English if there is no version in English. But as soon as there is a version in English, I'll do the same thing in English and even in Spanish as well. Sancho Brandão was actually a very experienced navigator. He knew the oceans very well, and also the Templar kings of Portugal. And I have mentioned this, they re-established the Order of Christ. I said that in the video of historic flags. Those kings already in 1300 knew, theoretically, that there were lands in the Atlantic Ocean. All that was left for them to do was confirm in practice the existence of these lands. This is what they sent Sancho Brandão for in 1342. His technique makes him the first to discover the path to the East Indies, aka India. It wasn't Vasco da Gama either. The winds obviously carried him over where nowadays is Cape Town in Africa, because there is the junction of many winds from various places. So he went a little after the Cape of Good Hope, as it is known nowadays. But when the winds calmed down, he made his way back to Brazil, where he actually discovered Brazil. And as a matter of fact, he arrived at the coast of Brazil and he explored everything from Pará, which is in the north of Brazil, until the Rio de la Plata, mind you. And furthermore, the very first registry in a map of the island of Brazil, they thought it was an island, is in the map made by cartographer Anges da Horto, which was made in 1325. And he puts the island of Brazil in this particular map west of the southern coast of Ireland. Our next great explorer is Duarte Pacheco Pereira. He began doing some exploring of the coast of Guinea under the orders of King Dom João II, and after that, his competence in terms of sailing and cosmography made it so that he was selected to be a part of the Portuguese delegation which was present in the signing of the Treaty of Tordesilhas. Remember, I already spoke about this in previous videos as well, in 1494. Because of all this, in 1498, King Dom Manuel I tasked him with going to Brazil and actually exploring the land, which according to the Treaty of Tordesilhas was a Portuguese possession. See what Brazil actually had to offer. And now out in the open, because you see, from 1342 until then, it was done, but it was done in secret by the kings of Portugal and with Portuguese of Jewish origin. Yes, as I mentioned in the video about the true date of Brazil's discovery, the kings of Portugal actually had an intention with Brazil, which was copied later by the King of France with the Antarctic France. Jews were already being persecuted, and also converted Jews as well, even more so than non-converted Jews in a lot of cases. So the kings of Portugal put the two interests together and decided to establish commerce by them here in Brazil, and also provide them with a land so that they could settle and live in peace without being persecuted and all of that. But mind you, it was a partnership, of course. It wasn't just out of the kindness of the kings of Portugal's hearts. The explorers came here and explored Brazil would, in that case, send the good stuff to Portugal, and in turn they got to have a land for them to make money, prosper, and all that good stuff as well. Anyways, he wrote a book called Esmeraldo Cito Orbis, narrating everything that he had discovered, but this book was censored by the King of Portugal, Dom Manuel I. Its contents remained secret for over 400 years. What he had discovered was deemed by the king to be such precious information that he wanted no one finding that out. And well, it makes sense, because when have you ever seen anything discovered by Jews be out in the open? Only when there's no other alternative. After several other voyages, he was given the position of captain of São Jorge da Mina between 1519 and 1522. In his book, Esmeraldo Cito Orbis, he refers to several maps that unfortunately have completely disappeared, probably because of the censorship imposed by King Dom Manuel. Moving on, our next explorer is the very famous Pedro Álvares Cabral.
But Amanda, okay, Sancho Brandão had already discovered Brazil, you mentioned before. Then they sent Duarte Pacheco Pereira to explore the land which was assigned to Portugal with the Treaty of Tordesillas. But then what did Cabral have to do?
You have ever heard of drying ice? He came here to further officialize what was already officialized. King Dom Manuel I wanted to reinforce the fact that Brazil belonged to Portugal. Pedro Álvares Cabral was born in Belmonte, in Portugal, between 1467 and 1468. There are also theories which say that it was actually his very first voyage, the voyage of 1500. When you think about it, it makes absolutely no sense that in the voyage which would discover Brazil, they would send someone inexperienced, which in fact he was. His previous experience in sea and in land are nowhere to be found. There's no record of them, which leads historians to believe that the reason why he was put in this position of commanding the fleet which officialized the Portuguese possession of Brazil even further in 1500 was due to his marriage to Isabel de Castro, which was granddaughter of the kings Dom Fernando and Dom Henrique of Castela, Dom Fernando, King of Portugal, and niece of Dom Afonso de Albuquerque. There you can see what a good marriage won't do, or wouldn't do, back then. And even furthermore, believe it or not, his great achievement was basically forgotten in the history of Brazil for over 300 years. It was only brought back in the 19th century when the Brazilian Historic and Geographic Institute, which, by the way, I have already mentioned as well in the video about the Regency of Araújo Lima, accepted the romanticized version of the discovery of Brazil as said by the Romantic writer Gonçalves Dias, with no proof whatsoever, mind you. And at this point, a historian had already presented all of the proof, all of the data, which proved that the discovery of Brazil was in 1342. But the fabricated, romanticized version of the accidental discovery in 1500 was the one that prevailed. Major case of fake news, I know.
You are fake news.
And can you imagine this? For 300 years, everyone in Brazil had forgotten about Cabral. Our next explorer that I'm going to talk about in this video is Nicolau Coelho. He was born in the Council of Felgueiras, and he was an expert in astronomical navigation and commanded one of the 3 ships which were part of the expedition of Vasco da Gama to India in 1498.
But Amanda, what did Vasco da Gama even do if he was second to cross the Cape of Good Hope?
They didn't only send the explorers once to the places and then nevermore, because after a place was discovered, commerce was established, and once commerce was established, you needed someone who knew the route, who knew how to navigate, so that your commercial venture would be a success. Better safe than sorry. Nicolau Coelho was tasked with exploring the shore of Africa and mapping out the places in the coast of Africa where it was viable for the ships to put down their anchors. For further knowledge, other travelers would know,
here I can put my anchor.
And in the journey back, the currents dragged him away from Vasco da Gama, and with this, his ship was the first to enter the Tejo River in Portugal, which I already mentioned in previous videos as well, by the way, one of the main rivers of Portugal. And he was the first to give news of the expedition and its success. He was rewarded for this with an allowance of what nowadays would be 50,000 reais a year. I wish I could receive that much. 6 months after he came back from India, he took to sea again, and this time he was part of the fleet of Pedro Álvares Cabral. And in this fleet, since he already had experience with exploring the shoreline, they sent him on a small boat to explore the shoreline.
You know, Nicolau, you've done this before. You're gonna do it this time as well. You have experience.
And also he was tasked with arriving at shore and establishing contact with the indigenous who were at the shore.
Go talk to them, Nicolau. We're counting on you.
Finally, in April 13th, 1503, he set sail again, this time for his last trip. Unfortunate. He was going to India again, as you can see, commanding the ship Fayal, which was in the fleet of Afonso and Francisco of Albuquerque. However, when he was coming back, his ship sunk close to the islands of Quirimbas, current Mozambique, and he died in the shipwreck. Next in our video about the great explorers is one which his name is the name of an island which is part of the territory of Brazil. It is none other than Fernando de Noronha, or his actual name, Fernão de Noronha. He was born in Lisbon, Portugal, in 1470, and he was married to Violante de Noronha, and they had a son named Diogo de Noronha Andrade. He was a knight in the royal house of King Dom Manuel and of King Dom João III. Just as Sancho Brandão, just as Duarte Pacheco Pereira, and also just as Pedro Álvares Cabral, he was a Jew who converted to Christianity. So as you can see, it wasn't all doom and gloom, in Portugal at least, for Jews who had converted. Some were lucky. Because of his successful explorations of the island, in 1504, the kings of Portugal granted him this island as one of the capitanias hereditárias, which I also mentioned in previous videos. But it wasn't him who gave his name to the island. He actually followed the custom of naming places according to the Catholic saint of that day. He named the island of St. John the Baptist. It was later that people gave that island his name.
I gave the island the name of a saint. You're the ones who called it my name.
So as you can see, it was customary to give the places the names of saints, even though, well, the first Jews who discovered Brazil, namely Sancho Brandão, decided to give it a more commercial name. Furthermore, there was already a register of the place of the island in maps in 1502, so he didn't go in blind, and the maps named the island as Island of Lent, Ilha da Quaresma, and there was even another accounting of this island by Américo Vespuccio from 1503, naming it the Island of San Lourenço, the patron saint of cooks, I guess. Some even say that he was a great merchant. You convert, but that doesn't come out of you. You still remain good with money and business. He was even a representative of the banker Jacob Fugger in the Iberian Peninsula. This concludes this video about some of the great explorers that made the Americas possible, and I hope you liked this video. And if you did like the video, be sure to hit that like button, and right after that hit that subscribe button, but most important of all, hit multiple times the share button and share this video with as many people as you possibly can, so that each time more people may know of the wonders of the wonderful city. And as usual in this channel, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!